This is all that's left of the row of slum cottages that were known rather picturesquely as Chapel Fields. The chapel refers to the independent congregational chapel that stood not far from here, and the fields is literally the fields that were in the town centre. But in this semi-rural location there was squalor, and there is an inquest from the 1890s into the death of an old woman who was living on a bed of straw and rags, and her home, her habitation, that was one room, was swarming with rats and disease, and the old woman was 58 years of age, and if you were poor in the late 19th century, that was old. Most of the cottages were demolished as part of the slum clearance programme that Worthing embarked on between the two world wars. Here we've got the backs of houses in Portland Road, and these were houses for the sort of middling sort of people. Perhaps the man who owned 3 or 4 fishing boats, the smaller tradesman, that type of person. But in between those houses and the Grafton Road villa were back-to-back houses that have been largely demolished, and these were slums, and these were wretched. So you had a situation of middling people, upper middling people, very poor people in between, and this huge wall, substantial wall that goes all the way down. And it really is a question of out of sight, out of mind. The people who lived on the other side of the wall didn't want to be reminded of, and certainly didn't want to see, the squalor and poverty that was on the other side of the wall. And if you're asking yourself, well, why were they so close together? The answer is because the landowners in central Worthing for many, many years resisted selling their farming land for house building. They were traditional farmers, traditional landowners, and they wished to remain so. It was only in the 1870s, when you had a combination of the value of land rising for housing and agricultural land value falling, due largely to competitive imports from America, that these traditional owners felt the need to sell their land because they simply couldn't make money out of agriculture, whereas they could make a quick buck out of selling for housing. But up until that point, the amount of land available was small, and so there was intensive development with houses for all types of social classes, cheek by jowl.